Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back through time into the gritty, choking world of medieval craftsmanship, where you, yes you, are about to become the blacksmith's overworked, underfed, soot-streaked apprentice. Imagine it now. The air is thick with the stench of burning coal, sweat clings like a second skin, and the forge's glow turns every shadow into something monstrous. You can feel the oppressive heat pulsing from that roaring hearth, your eyes watering from smoke as you blink furiously to see anything at all. The hammer strikes ring in your ears, dull and endless. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far we all stretch across the map. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step cautiously through the low wooden door of the forge, and immediately your nostrils are assaulted by the sour reek of sweat and old ale. A thick smoke haze clings to the rafters, making it hard to see much beyond the molten glow at the back. The master doesn't even look up from his work. He just barks for you to shut the damn door before all the heat escapes. Nice welcome, right? The floor is dirt, packed hard from years of boots and spilled water meant to quench flames. Your shoes sink slightly into old mud as you walk, and you have to dodge a scattering of rusted tools and bent nails that never made the quality cut. Even now you can hear the bellows groaning, pushed by another miserable apprentice who glares at you in pure betrayal, like he was hoping you'd be his replacement, not his co-worker. You're shown to your quarters, if you can call them that. A straw mattress pushed into the corner, conveniently near enough to the forge to be warm at night, but also close enough to catch every stray spark. Historians still argue whether blacksmith shops really doubled as sleeping quarters, or if that's just romanticized nonsense. But tonight it doesn't matter. You're stuck here. Your master finally acknowledges you. He's a hulk of a man, arms roped with muscle, bald head shining with sweat. He gestures at the forge, the anvil, the tongs, the hammers. No words of welcome, just a curt. That's your life now. You can't help but wonder why you agreed to this. Was it the promise of learning a valuable trade? The respect the village gives the blacksmith? Or was it just the fact that there weren't any other jobs that didn't involve shoveling manure for a living? Joke's on you. There's plenty of that here too. You're ordered to clean the forge. Seems easy until you realize it means hauling out buckets of ash so fine it chokes you with every scoop. Your eyes sting and water, your nose clogs with black sludge, and every cough sends a puff of soot drifting like hellish confetti. There's a weird superstition in this shop. Every morning, the master spits in the forge. He claims it's to appease the fire spirits so they don't consume the whole building in revenge. You're told to do it too, and you awkwardly comply. A mainstream historical fact? Medieval people genuinely did believe forges had a life of their own. Blacksmiths were seen as half craftsmen, half sorcerers. You finish cleaning just in time to see the master inspecting a twisted, half-finished blade. He curses under his breath about those cheap merchants bringing him bad quality iron. He insists he can fix it, but you'll be the one heating it and holding it while he hammers. Hope you're into burns, because you're about to collect them like trading cards. As night settles in, you notice something strange. One corner of the forge is stacked with odd objects. Broken bells, bent coins, a hunk of meteorite someone claims is cursed. The master says he won't melt that one. Bad luck. It's a fringe detail that's somehow not surprising in this weird smoky sanctum. Your training starts now, apparently. No rest, no meal first. The master shows you how to grip the tongs properly, because if you don't, your hand will slip and you'll drop white-hot iron onto your foot. He demonstrates by smacking the back of your leg with the handle. Learn fast, he says with a grin that suggests he hopes you don't. You practice lifting scraps from the embers. They're not even glowing much yet, but the heat still stings. You're told not to complain. Heat is life, the master says solemnly, like he's reciting scripture. You almost laugh but swallow it when you see his eyes. Outside, you can hear the village winding down. Laughter from the alehouse, the clop of hooves, someone singing off-key. None of that is for you now. Your world is this rectangle of firelight, hammer clangs, and constant orders. You're about as welcome here as a lice outbreak, but at least you're warm. You watch the master hammer out a red-hot horseshoe, shaping it with rhythmic blows. Sparks fly like shooting stars, showering the dirt floor. You try to mimic him with a cold piece of scrap. He snorts. "A drunk pig has better form," he mutters. Encouraging. He gives you your first real job, sweeping. Again, but now you're to collect the iron filings so they don't get embedded in new workpieces. You didn't think you could be bored while standing next to an open furnace, but here you are, half asleep on your feet while the other apprentice shoves you aside to pump the bellows with a curse. You're given one rule above all others: never let the fire die. If the coals go cold overnight, you'll be up before dawn rebuilding the heat from nothing, which apparently makes you less than useless. Your hands are already black, fingers sore just from holding the broom. The master says tomorrow you'll try swinging the hammer for real. If you're lucky, he adds ominously, then sends you to your corner. You lie on the straw mattress, trying to ignore the itching and the smell of old sweat. Above you, the rafters shift and groan, the smoke lazily curling like ghostly fingers. You can't help but think that you're trapped here now. This forge is your world, your prison, your future. You close your eyes, listening to the crackle of the coals as they settle. Outside the forge, the wind whistles through gaps in the wood, but in here, it's suffocatingly warm. You're exhausted, but restless. The master's snores are already starting to rattle the walls. Somewhere in the darkness, a spark pops, landing dangerously close to your bedding. You slap it out, heart hammering. Guess you'll sleep lightly tonight. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Or not. You wake before dawn because the master ordered it, but also because you never really slept. Your body curls around the meager warmth of the forge's dying embers, straw mattress prickling your skin. When you open your eyes, there's only a dull glow from the coals and the bitter cold waiting to chew your fingers off the moment you crawl out from under your cloak. You sit up slowly, joints cracking like old wood. The floor is so cold you feel it through your shoes, so you try to hop quickly across the dirt to the hearth. There's no grand morning routine here, no steaming mug of anything nice. Your breath smokes in the air as you lean in close, trying to soak up what little heat remains. The master is already awake, naturally. You wonder if he even sleeps. He's staring into the coals with that same grim expression, as if he's waiting for them to confess their sins. He doesn't say good morning, just gestures with his chin toward the bellows and says, "Make it live." You take a deep breath, grab the wooden handles, and start to pump. The ancient bellows wheeze like dying lungs, and you can feel the ice in the leather, stiff and uncooperative. But with each squeeze, you see the red deepen in the coals, a glow that's strangely hypnotic, like watching the heart of some sleeping beast. "Keep it going," the master mutters. "If it goes out, you'll be digging ditches for the Baron by tomorrow." He's probably not joking. Your arms start to burn almost immediately. Bellows work is repetitive, heavy, and weirdly precise. Too slow and the heat dies, too fast and you blow ash everywhere. There's a real technique to it, something you didn't think about before you were forced to try. Your master is nothing if not generous with insults as you learn, calling you half-witted goat every time you mistime the rhythm. After what feels like forever, the forge finally roars with that proper searing heat. It's both satisfying and terrifying. The flames lick up in hungry tongues, and the smoke thickens so quickly it blinds you for a second. You cough and squint through it, trying to see if he's satisfied. He isn't. "Coal," he says, tossing you a battered iron scoop. You trudge outside into the freezing pre-dawn air, the ground hard with frost. Your breath puffs like a steam engine, and you realize you're shaking, both from cold and fatigue. You find the coal pile under its warped roof, grab a scoop and drag it back in. The heat of the forge hits you like a wall every time you re-enter. It's dizzying. Outside you're freezing, inside you're roasting. You're a human sandwich. Loading coal isn't glamorous. You shovel it in carefully, trying not to kill the flames or scatter cinders onto yourself. The master supervises like an angry gargoyle. "Don't waste it," he says, even though half the pile is junk dust. Historians still argue whether the average medieval forge burned cleaner hardwood charcoal or messy bituminous coal, but whatever you're using now is filthy. Black smoke billows every time you feed it. Your face is already streaked like a chimney sweep's. At one point you wipe your brow with your sleeve and realize it's soaking wet. Not from water, from sweat. Even though it's freezing outside, in here you're drenched. The master likes to joke that you'll sweat enough to put the fire out. Ha! Very funny. You're also introduced to the joys of clinker. It's the useless, glassy slag that forms at the bottom of the forge. You have to dig it out with a long rod, trying not to tip the entire fire onto yourself. The master is very clear that if you drop the rod or disturb the fire too much, you'll be sleeping outside with the pigs. It's not a metaphor. He literally points at the pig pen next door. While you're scraping out the clinker, you notice the forge tools lined up behind the master. Hammers, tongs, chisels, each one blackened with use but carefully shaped. There's an art to them, you're told. Blacksmiths often made their own tools to suit their personal style. Your masters are like him, heavy, blunt, and intimidating. A mainstream historical fact, a medieval smith often made tools for other trades. Carpenter's planes, mason's chisels, even cooking pots. Not just swords. You realize quickly that if you survive this, you might actually become indispensable to the entire village. That doesn't help you now, though. Your eyes burn with smoke. You can't rub them because your hands are covered in soot and ash. Every breath tastes like burned dirt. Your nose is a faucet of black slime. When you finally pause, the master shoves you aside to show you how it's actually done, moving with surprising grace for such a massive man. He works the bellows smoothly, rhythmically, as if he's breathing life into the flames. Watching him is almost hypnotic, until he turns to you and says, "Well, don't just stand there like a fence post." You jump back into action, this time trying to match his timing. It's weirdly satisfying when you get it right and the flames roar obediently. Even the master grunts in approval. For half a second, you think he might even crack a smile. He doesn't. Meanwhile, the other apprentice is awake now. He stumbles over to you, muttering curses, and elbows you for space at the bellows. You two are expected to alternate without letting the rhythm drop. Of course, you're both exhausted, so it turns into a passive-aggressive dance of shoving and muttering. "Watch it," he hisses. "Make me," you hiss back. The master doesn't even look up. He just says, "Good. Fight makes strong apprentices." Quirky tidbit? Medieval apprentices really did sleep in the shop, waking at ungodly hours to keep the forge hot. But there are tales of them pranking each other by slipping frog guts into sleeping rolls or tossing hot coals at bare feet. You're starting to think you're going to experience that firsthand. You're about to protest when the master finally calls for a break. But there's no breakfast. Just a swig of thin ale to settle the lungs. You're pretty sure it's just to keep you quiet. You collapse near the forge, breathing hard, sweating even harder. The master leans back on a barrel, crosses his arms, and says, "Better hope the Baron's men don't arrive today. They want 10 new horseshoes. That's your job." Your stomach drops. Horseshoes? You thought you'd be making swords and shields. No one told you blacksmithing was 90% boring, repetitive work, and 10% avoiding catastrophic fires. Outside, the first light of dawn is just creeping in through the cracks in the wall. You see dust motes dancing in the orange glow. It would be beautiful if you weren't so miserably tired. The master barks at you to stoke the fire again. Your arms feel like wet noodles, but you obey. The other apprentice smirks at your suffering, then promptly gets yelled at for getting the rhythm wrong. It's going to be a long, long day, and it's only just begun. You're given a break that lasts all of 3 minutes before the master shouts for you to shovel in more coal. The chill of dawn is gone now. Inside, it's an oven. You drag the scoop, arms trembling, and tip black chunks onto the already roaring bed of coals. Sparks leap out, forcing you to jump back unless you want your eyebrows singed off. Careful, the master drawls. We can't bill extra for you being hairless. He thinks he's hilarious. You realize the forge is a world of constant, unrelenting tasks. There's no true pause. Even rest means switching to something else. Turning bellows, moving stock, tidying the floor. Every job is menial yet critical. The master keeps an eye on you both, yelling whenever you slack. He seems to thrive on it, like your misery is a bell he rings for fun. Your fellow apprentice shoves you. Bellows now, he snaps. You glare at him but comply. Grabbing the stiff handles, you start the steady squeeze-pull-squeeze rhythm that makes your shoulders burn. Hot air blasts your face, filling your lungs with smoke. It's like breathing through a campfire. Your nose drips black, and your cough sounds like gravel. There's a weird satisfaction, though, in watching the metal change color. It's a sullen black at first, then a dull red, then suddenly it's glowing orange-white like the sun itself. The master taps it with tongs, testing it like a chef checks steak. Too cold, he growls. Bellows faster. You comply until you see stars, arms screaming in protest. When he finally declares it ready, he hauls it out and slams it onto the anvil. The clang echoes off the walls, vibrating your teeth. He swings the hammer with bone-jarring force. Sparks fly, the smell of hot iron fills the space, and you feel the heat even from feet away. You're ordered to flip the piece with tongues. You hesitate half a second too long and he barks at you. Do you want it to burn, or do you want it shaped? You grab it, and the radiant heat feels like sticking your hand in an oven, even through thick gloves. You fumble, drop it, curse. The master glares. Pick it up. You do, heart pounding, palms sweating. The other apprentice laughs under his breath. Mainstream historical fact. Blacksmith shops often had multiple apprentices, but only one or two were ever trusted near the master's work. You're learning why. Coordination is everything, and mistakes ruin valuable metal. Again, the master says, and don't drop it. This time you manage, though you can feel the heat through the tongs as if it wants to crawl into your bones. He hammers with a rhythm that's strangely hypnotic. You can see the metal flatten and shape with each blow. For a second, you almost admire him. This rough brute knows exactly what he's doing. Then he insults your parentage and tells you to turn it again. You're sweating so hard your shirt is soaked, and the smoke is making you half blind. You can taste iron dust on your tongue. You sneeze black. Good, the master says after what feels like hours. Now it's ready for quenching. He dunks it into a trough of water. Steam explodes with a hiss so loud you flinch. The smell is like wet blood and scorched earth. He inspects the piece. Crooked, he declares. Your fault. You let it cool uneven. You try to protest, but his glare stops you cold. You're told to sweep the floor. Again, you don't even argue. You drag the broom, watching sparks settle and fade. The other apprentice snickers and mutters something about you being useless. You resist the urge to shove him into the coals. Meanwhile, the master is sharpening tools on a grindstone. The wheel shrieks as metal grinds against it, sending tiny fireworks of orange. You see that even his hammer has been customized. It has a weird notch on one face. He explains, without being asked, that it helps shape curves more easily. Quirky tidbit. Blacksmiths often personalized their tools so much that when they died, apprentices struggled to use them. Some even claimed their masters cursed the tools to spite them. You're ordered to help with the bellows again. By now you can barely feel your arms. Every movement is robotic, but you know the rhythm. You even find yourself counting under your breath to stay consistent. Not bad, the master grudges. High praise. He explains, sort of, that this time you're prepping the forge for a big project, reshaping a batch of rusted scrap into usable stock. It's garbage iron, he says, but it's what the merchant paid for. Wants it tomorrow. We don't get it done. We don't eat. Historians still argue whether medieval merchants truly supplied such terrible scrap routinely, or if that's just the smiths complaining in surviving letters. But in this shop, at least, the evidence is damning. The pile of rusted iron looks like it was pulled from a bog. You're given a chisel and told to chip off the worst of the corrosion. It's tedious, back-breaking work. Every stroke sends flakes flying into your hair, eyes, mouth. You try to spit them out. Faster, the master says. We don't have all day. You want to scream. Instead, you work faster. Outside, the world is fully awake now. You can hear carts creaking past, people yelling to each other, dogs barking. A reminder that there's a normal life beyond these walls. A life with fresh air. You don't get that luxury. You're black to the elbows with soot. The master finally calls for a break, which just means you lean against the wall and try not to collapse. Your fellow apprentice slumps beside you, muttering curses. I'm going to kill him in his sleep, he says cheerfully. You laugh, weakly. The master calls you both ladies and says break time is over. You both groan, but you move. What choice do you have? You glance at the fire as you return to work. It's alive now, a ferocious thing that demands constant feeding, and you're its servant. You know you'll be feeding it all day, all night, forever. But for now, you pick up the scoop, and you keep going. You don't get much time to catch your breath. The master eyes you like a hawk the moment you set the scoop down. Good, you're upright, he says. Grab those scraps. He points to a heap of twisted, rust-specked iron bars that look like they were dredged up from the bottom of a swamp. Some probably were. You sigh, already knowing what's coming. Your job is to prep them for reforging. That means hammering out the worst bends, breaking off cracked ends, and flattening them enough to fit into the hearth without choking the flames. It's not glamorous work. It's not even work that makes you feel like a blacksmith. It makes you feel like a janitor with anger issues. The other apprentice grins. Have fun, he says. He's on bellows duty now, which means you'll be taking turns on that too. The joy. You grab the biggest hammer you're allowed to use and drag a piece of scrap onto the anvil. The master doesn't even bother watching at first. He knows you'll screw it up, and you do. Your first blow barely dents it. Your second makes it bounce off the anvil and clang to the ground, showering your legs with flakes of rust. You jump back, cursing. The master sighs deeply, like a disappointed father, and finally deigns to instruct you. Hold it steady. Let the weight of the hammer do the work. You're not beating a rug. He demonstrates with terrifying ease. His hammer swings look lazy, but each blow lands perfectly, flattening the bar and sending a puff of rust into the air like some unholy incense. He hands the hammer back. Do it again. You obey, heart pounding. This time it goes better. Not good, mind you, just less humiliating. The bar starts to straighten under your unsteady rhythm. Good, the master says grudgingly. Now do the rest. You look at the pile. There must be 30 more. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval blacksmiths rarely wasted metal. Even broken weapons or tools would be reforged, melted down, or turned into something new. Iron was too valuable to just toss aside. You mutter this fact to yourself as you work, as if it's going to comfort you. It doesn't. The other apprentice is pumping the bellows and smirking at your struggle. You missed a spot, he jeers as flakes of rust keep popping off. You resist the urge to throw the hammer at him. Barely. Eventually you swap places because the bellows need constant attention. Your arms are noodles by now, but you grab the wooden handles and start the dreaded rhythm. Push, pull, squeeze, wheeze. The fire roars, hungry as ever. The master shovels in more coal and barks for you to keep it hot or go home. You're pretty sure you don't even have a home anymore. Just this hellish box of smoke and flame. By midday, the forge is stifling. Even with the doors cracked for air, it feels like you're trapped in the devil's mouth. Your shirt clings to you, black with sweat and grime. Your hair is plastered to your forehead. You realize you haven't eaten. Meal break, the master announces. You nearly cry with relief. Except there's no feast. He hands you a chunk of hard bread that's gone stale enough to drive nails with, and a scrap of salty cheese that may or may not be growing new life. You bite it anyway. Your stomach doesn't care. He hands you a small flask of ale. For the throat, he says. It burns going down, but at least it kills the taste of ash in your mouth. While you eat, you look around the shop. It's small but crammed with chaos. Molds for horseshoes, bars of iron, barrels of water, piles of coal. tools hang everywhere, like iron bats. You notice something odd on a high shelf, a tiny clay figure with cracked eyes. The other apprentice catches you staring. "Charm," he says, chewing. "Keeps the forge spirits happy, or curses us, no one's sure." Quirky tidbit. Many smiths were deeply superstitious, leaving offerings to keep their fires burning right. Some even claimed their forges had minds of their own. "Eat faster," the master growls. "We've got orders." You choke down the last bite, wipe your hands on your filthy shirt, and stand. Back to work. The master says you're prepping tools today. That means sharpening chisels on the grindstone, testing the edges, oiling handles so they don't split. It's fussy work, but important. You sit at the stone, cranking the wheel by hand while you press the chisel against it. Sparks fly in tiny arcs. You try not to imagine one hitting your eye. "Keep it even," the master instructs. "We're not making saws." You nod grimly. Your arms ache from everything you've done, but you keep cranking. The stone squeals like a dying rat. You swap with the other apprentice to keep the rhythm going. It's monotonous, but almost relaxing compared to hauling coal. You actually start to drift off at one point, which earns you a sharp rap on the back of the head from the master. "Sleep when you're dead," he says. Charming. After sharpening, you're told to test the bellows leather for holes. This means rubbing tallow into cracks and patching spots that might leak air. It's messy, smelly work. You smell like rancid meat by the end. Historians still argue whether medieval tallow was as universally used for bellows leather or if other fats were common. Your master doesn't care. He just demands it be done. You sigh and smear another handful onto a split seam. "Apprentice," he barks, "stop daydreaming." You jerk back to attention, snapping the patch closed. By now the heat is truly unbearable. The air ripples like water above the forge. The floor is covered in a slippery mix of ash, sweat, and spilled water from quenching. You nearly slip twice, catching yourself on the anvil and earning a fresh burn for your trouble. Your fellow apprentice laughs. "Shut it!" You hiss. He just laughs harder. The master doesn't even look up. He's sorting iron bars by size, muttering curses about merchants who don't know a proper bar from pig iron. Your shoulders slump. Your head throbs. But you keep moving. Because if you stop, you're dead weight. And the master doesn't tolerate dead weight. The forge's heat isn't just uncomfortable, it's aggressive, like a living creature intent on roasting you alive. You've long since lost any sense of personal space. There's nowhere to stand where the warmth isn't searing your skin or making your eyes sting with tears. The entire building is a cauldron. Your master seems immune to it. He stands there shirtless now, skin glistening with sweat, shouting orders over the roar of the flames. His hair is gone, probably sacrificed long ago to a stray ember. His beard is black with soot and age. When he yells, it's like the voice of the forge itself. "Bellows," he bellows. You scramble to grab the handles, ignoring the fresh blisters on your palms. You pull and push, feeling every fiber in your arms protest. You can smell yourself, burnt, sour, animal. Your fellow apprentice trades off with you, elbowing you in the ribs. "Go tend the fire," he sneers. You glare but obey, shoveling in another load of coal. The flames leap up with greedy pleasure, blasting your face with furnace heat. For a moment it feels like it might actually catch your eyebrows. "Again," the master shouts. You repeat the process, rhythm breaking only when you wipe your forehead with your sleeve, leaving a black streak across your face. "Pathetic," the master drawls. "That fire is your life. If it goes cold, you're useless." He's not wrong. You watch the flames, fascinated and a little terrified. They flicker and dance, crackle and pop. The air is alive with sparks that drift lazily toward the roof before vanishing in little puffs of smoke. It's beautiful in a way. Horrible, but beautiful. Mainstream historical fact. Medieval forges could reach over 1000 degrees Celsius. That's enough to make iron malleable, but not enough to truly melt it. Hence all this work shaping it while it's hot but still solid. You remind yourself of that as you drag out an iron bar with tongs, watching it glow orange-white. It's like holding a small sun. You're told to lay it on the anvil. The master lines up his hammer, eyeing it like prey. Then he strikes. The blow rings out like a church bell, reverberating in your bones. Sparks explode in all directions. The iron deforms beneath the hammer, stretching, flattening. He grunts with each hit, sweat flying from his brow. "Turn it," he snaps. You clumsily rotate the bar with the tongs, wincing as heat seeps through the thick leather. The metal hisses in protest, refusing to cooperate. "Too slow." He whacks the tongs, sending a jolt through your wrist. You nearly drop the iron. "Faster next time," he says. You swallow hard and nod. You notice the floor is littered with stray iron scraps, old nails, bits of broken tongs. The master never cleans unless you do it, and you do it constantly. Between forging sessions, you're ordered to sweep the floor, but it's a joke. The ash settles as fast as you clear it. Your broom is blackened and frayed. "Cleaner," the master says with deadpan seriousness. You want to throw the broom at him. Your fellow apprentice just laughs, wiping sweat off his face with an equally filthy sleeve. Outside, the world is moving. You hear distant bells from the village church, chickens squawking, people yelling about bread or fish. Normal life, not for you. Inside, it's just fire and sweat and the never-ending metallic ring of hammer on iron. Quirky tidbit: smiths often named their hammers. Some treated them like partners or pets. Yours doesn't have a name yet, but you're considering Widowmaker for how it's murdering your arms. You're ordered to help flatten another piece. The master barks at you to watch the edges so you don't thin them too much. You have no idea what he means, but you nod solemnly. Historians still argue whether all medieval blacksmiths had this kind of back-breaking apprenticeship, or if some places were kinder. You suspect those historians never had to swing a hammer in their lives. Another iron bar, another round of bellows, another round of insults. Your arms ache so badly you want to cry. The master notices. "You think you're tired?" he says, voice low. "This is the easy part. Wait until you're the one swinging the big hammer for hours." You almost collapse on the spot. You're told to fetch water next. The quenching trough is low, so you drag a bucket to the well outside. The cold air hits you like a blessing, even though it's no longer truly cold. You gulp in breaths like a drowning man. You take your time. The master's yelling can't follow you this far. But you can't hide forever. You draw water, sloshing some onto your boots. It soaks in instantly, mixing with sweat. You don't even care. When you return, the other apprentice glares at you. "Lazy," he hisses. You dump the water in the trough. Jealous. The master growls at you both to shut up. He's shaping a hook now, explaining, again unprompted, that the village needs them for hanging kettles over fires. "Not all swords and glory," he says. "Most days it's hooks and nails and hinges." He gestures at a box of half-finished nails. "Start on those," he orders. You want to scream. Instead, you grab the cold iron stock, heat it in the fire, pull it out glowing, and start hammering it into thin spikes. Each nail takes forever. You ruin 3 before you get one that looks even close to right. The master sighs heavily. "Passable," he says at last. High praise indeed. You're drenched. Your hands are raw, blistered. Your back feels like it's going to split in half. But you keep going, because stopping isn't an option, because the forge doesn't care, because the master will keep yelling. Because if you stop, you're nothing. And that's just not acceptable here. The master doesn't even bother explaining the next task. He just points at the forge with a filthy, calloused finger and says, "Smelting." You swallow hard. You thought you'd been hot before. Turns out that was the warm-up act. He orders you and the other apprentice to crank the bellows like your lives depend on it, which, in a sense, they do. The entire forge rattles with the roar of flame, heat distorting the air so badly it looks like you're underwater. Every time you inhale, it burns. Your lungs feel lined with ash. "Don't choke now," the other apprentice mutters. You shoot him a look that could kill, but you keep pumping. You don't dare stop. The master is loading up a crucible, a heavy clay pot with broken bits of iron and something that looks like crushed glass. "Flux," he explains curtly, noticing your confusion. "Helps the slag separate." Mainstream historical fact. Medieval smelting was primitive by modern standards, but flux was essential for getting usable iron out of pig iron or scrap. Without it, you'd get a mess of useless slag. The heat rises until you're sure you're cooking from the inside out. You can feel sweat sizzling on your skin. You stop bothering to wipe your face. It's a lost cause. The master uses long iron tongues to lower the crucible into the hottest part of the coals. Flames lick up the sides, wrapping it in bright orange light. He's muttering under his breath. Maybe prayers, maybe curses. You're not sure which is more effective here. Keep those bellows going, he orders. You and the other apprentice trade off in a frantic, graceless dance. One pumps while the other gasps for breath. There's no rhythm anymore, just raw panic to keep the fire alive. And the heat, God's the heat. It doesn't just warm you, it consumes you. It feels like the forge wants your soul in payment for every bit of metal you purify. Your arms shake with effort. Your vision swims. The master finally pulls the crucible out. It's glowing like a miniature sun, contents sloshing with molten menace. He sets it on a bed of sand and waits for it to cool just enough to pour. You stare at it, fascinated despite yourself. It's beautiful, terrifying. He tilts it carefully, molten iron running in a glowing stream into a mold carved from sand and clay. It hisses and spits, sending little sparks into the air. You jump back reflexively, earning a bark of laughter from the master. Scared? You don't even bother answering. He nods at the leftover slag still in the crucible, a lumpy black crust. Get that out. Don't break the pot. You grimace. The slag is still so hot it glows faintly. You grab the scraping rod with thick gloves and start working it out, feeling every vibration in your arms. Slag is the waste of smelting, useless but unavoidable. It's like scooping sin out of the metal. You can see why people used to think forges were magical. Or cursed. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval blacksmiths swore slag was evil, hiding demons that could curse your tools if you weren't respectful. Others used it as filler in paths or walls. Bad metal for bad jobs. You scrape until your gloves smoke, but you get it clear. Not terrible, the master says, which is his version of, I don't hate you today. He explains, again, whether you want it or not, that smelting isn't always predictable. Some days you get good iron, some days you get crap. Historians still argue whether medieval smelters could truly control the carbon content. I say they couldn't. It's luck. You blink at him. Carbon, he clarifies with a grunt. Too little and it's soft as cheese. Too much and it's brittle. Balance is everything, and no one agrees on how they did it right. You try to nod intelligently, but you're half dead from the heat. The master snorts. Get water. You're only too happy to obey. Outside, the world feels like a different planet. The air is fresh, cold on your skin. You stand there too long, gulping lungfuls of it, eyes watering from relief. But you can't linger. You fill the bucket and head back in, bracing for the blast of heat. Sure enough, it hits you like a physical shove. You stagger, but keep going. The other apprentice is already back on bellows duty, cursing under his breath. You trade off with a silent glare. Now it's your turn to work the fire while he hauls slag out to dump. You watch the flames and can't help but feel a little respect. They're alive. Hungry. Beautiful. You shovel in more coal, watching the glow deepen to that eye-searing white. You know the master is watching too, waiting for you to screw up. He doesn't say anything this time. That's somehow worse. Eventually he calls for another crucible load. You help load the broken iron, flux, and a few chunks of mystery scrap. What's that, you ask? Don't ask, he says flatly. You don't. He lowers it into the forge, and the ritual begins again. Bellows, sweat, curses. The air shimmers with heat. Your head spins from the constant smoke and the lack of real air. But you don't stop, because stopping is failing. Because failing means you don't get fed. Because failing means the master might decide you're not worth keeping around. And because, in a weird, awful way, you want to see that molten iron again. You want to see it glow, you want to see it pour, you want to be the one shaping it someday. But for now, you're just the bellows monkey, the slag scraper, the apprentice, and you'll do the work, even if it kills you. The master doesn't bother announcing that you're moving on to weapons work. He just waves dismissively at a rack of half-finished swords and says, "These need finishing, and they need it yesterday." You shuffle over, blinking through the haze of smoke. The blades are all shapes and sizes, most looking like someone tried to forge them with a rock and wishful thinking. The edges are lumpy, the tangs are crooked, and a few have cracks that make you want to laugh until you remember you'll have to fix them. The other apprentice gives you a look that says, "Welcome to the real fun." You grab one that's especially ugly. It's supposed to be a longsword, but right now it's a twisted bar with delusions of grandeur. You lift it to the light, such as it is, and sigh. "You're fixing that?" Your fellow apprentice snickers. "Shut up," you mutter. You haul it to the anvil, check the heat in the forge, and realize the flames have gone a little sleepy. Great. You're going to have to pump the bellows first. Of course you are. So you start dragging the bellows handle until your arms burn. The fire roars reluctantly to life, smoke thickening. You cough and feel your nose clog with black again. You're convinced you'll be sneezing soot for the rest of your life. The master wanders over to inspect your chosen project. He squints at the blade and grunts. Trash. But they paid for swords, so swords they'll get. Mainstream historical fact. Blacksmiths often had to churn out weapons fast for mercenaries and levies, especially during wartime. Quality control was flexible. You set the blade in the coals, watching it slowly shift from dull black to red to that lovely orange glow. It's weirdly calming, hypnotic even. You almost forget how tired you are. Almost. You grab the tongs and pull it free, feeling the heat lick your face. The metal sizzles, tiny sparks floating off it. You place it on the anvil and line up your hammer. Then you hesitate. The master sees this and lets out the world's heaviest sigh. "Hit it," he says. You hit it. It's wrong. He shoves you aside. Like this. He hammers with the precision of someone who's done this 10,000 times. The steel bends obediently, flattening in clean lines. Sparks fly in a fountain that lights up the entire dark shop. You're so tired you forget to flinch. "Now you," he orders, tossing the hammer back. Your arms scream in protest, but you raise it anyway. You swing, a little better this time, watching the metal flow under the blow. It's ugly work, but you're learning. Sort of. The other apprentice calls out helpfully, "Don't screw it up." You fantasize about hammering him, but you keep going. The master eventually lets you take a break. You collapse against the wall, wiping your face and smearing fresh soot across your forehead. Your lungs burn, your eyes sting. You're sure you've aged 5 years. The other apprentice slumps beside you. "Bet they'll be real grateful for these masterpieces," he jokes. You snort. "They'll be too busy stabbing people to notice." Quirky tidbit. Sometimes customers insisted on swords being overly decorative, with inlays or inscriptions they couldn't afford. Smiths would do it anyway, badly, just to shut them up. You both laugh weakly. The master ignores you, focusing on another blade. He's actually humming, which is unnerving. You're allowed to gulp some ale. Thin, watery, but better than nothing. The taste is half ash by now anyway. "Back to work," the master says. Of course. You heat the blade again. The forge's glow is steady now, thanks to the other apprentice's bellows work. You try to time your hammer blows with your breathing, aiming for that weird, meditative rhythm the master makes look so easy. You fail, but you fail less badly than before. You realize something unsettling as you work. This isn't glamorous. It isn't even particularly artistic most of the time. It's grunt work. Dirty, exhausting, repetitive. You're not forging Excalibur here. You're making sharpened bars that hopefully won't snap on first use. You manage to straighten the tang enough to pass muster. The master grunts his approval. "Next," he says. You almost cry. You grab another blade from the rack. This one is slightly better, but only just. You set it in the fire, pump the bellows, watch the colors shift. There's a weird satisfaction when you pull it out glowing. The other apprentice is helping by prepping the next blade, scraping off scale, checking for deep cracks. You trade insults like proper co-workers. "You missed a spot," you tell him. "Your face missed a spot," he retorts. It's practically affection at this point. The master yells at both of you to shut up. You do. You swing the hammer. Over and over. The anvil rings like a bell. The forge hisses and crackles. The whole shop smells like burned metal and sweat and failure. It's horrible. It's your life now. Historians still argue whether apprentices were paid at all or just given board and training. Based on this, you're betting they weren't paid enough. Your fingers are cramping so badly you can't even hold the hammer properly. The master finally notices and sighs. Put it down before you drop it on your foot. You obey gladly. He takes over, moving with infuriating grace. Sparks fly in steady, beautiful arcs. He turns the metal like it's dough, shaping it with blows that look effortless but hit like a war drum. You watch in exhausted awe. He finishes the edge enough for a passable blade. Not great, but good enough. Deliverable, he declares. He drops it in the quench trough. Steam erupts in a cloud that smells like blood and wet iron. You cough, waving it away. You realize the master's been doing this for decades, that his body is wrecked from it, but he keeps going anyway. Because someone has to. Because people pay. Because war never stops needing blades. You look at your fellow apprentice. He's watching too, silent for once. You both know this is you in 20 years, if you last that long. But there's no choice now. You're in it. You're in the fire, and there's no getting out. You don't even get a moment to bask in the glory of weapons forging before the master turns and jabs a thick finger at a battered crate by the door. Horseshoes, he growls, and farm tools. Get to it. You stare at the crate like it's a personal insult. Inside, bent iron shapes rattle around. Half-finished horseshoes, broken scythes, dented hoes. Nothing elegant, nothing heroic, just the endless, thankless work that keeps a village alive. Your fellow apprentice snorts at your expression. What's wrong? Too good for shoes? Shut up, you mutter automatically, dragging out the first piece. It's a lump of iron pretending to be a horseshoe. The holes for nails are uneven, the curves all wrong. A donkey might refuse to wear it on principle. The master is already laying out blanks by the anvil. Smith's bread and butter, he says, not kindly. They don't pay for swords most days. They pay for these. He's not lying. Mainstream historical fact. Most blacksmiths in the Middle Ages made far more horseshoes and plowshares than weapons. War made them famous, but farming kept them fed. You try to remind yourself of that as you haul the iron over to the forge. You can practically hear it mocking you. Bellows duty first. You and the other apprentice trade off with a kind of silent, seething rhythm. Even your insults are half-hearted now, worn down by exhaustion. Faster, the master says without looking up. You hate how you obey instantly. You watch the metal darken, then glow red, then orange, ready for shaping. You pull it out with the tongs, feeling the heat on your face. You don't flinch anymore. You're too tired. You set it on the anvil. The master doesn't even bother demonstrating. He just says, "You know what shape it is. Make it." You raise the hammer. Your hand is blistered, your shoulder an agony of cramps, but you swing anyway. The iron bends under your blows, reluctantly taking on that familiar curved shape. Sparks dance like angry fireflies every time you strike. You hear them hiss as they die on the dirt floor. "Don't thin it too much," the master says sharply. "You want it to bend, not snap." You adjust your swing, muttering curses. It's repetitive, brutal, and deeply unglamorous. There's no artistry here, just utility. The other apprentice sets up at the second anvil, working on a scythe blade. He's sweating so much it drips onto the hot iron and sizzles instantly. You can't help it. You laugh. He glares at you, wiping his forehead with a filthy sleeve. "Shut up," he says. "Make me," you croak back. The master ignores you both. He's checking the alignment of another horseshoe, turning it this way and that in the firelight. His face is unreadable. You keep hammering. Your arms go numb, then painful, then numb again. You wonder if you're damaging something permanently. Probably. You don't stop. Because if you stop, you'll have to pump the bellows instead. And that's somehow worse. The master eventually takes the shoe from you, examines it critically, and says, "Passable." You feel an absurd rush of pride before you remember you're filthy, exhausted, and making the blacksmith equivalent of toilet paper. Quirky tidbit. Some villages actually had laws requiring blacksmiths to make a certain number of horseshoes for the community each year. They were that essential. Again, the master says, "Of course." You grab another blank, heat it, bellows, hammer, shape. Cool. Repeat. Your mind starts to drift with the rhythm. The sounds of the forge become background music. The roar of flame, the squeal of bellows leather, the clang of iron, the hiss of quenching water. You lose count of how many shoes you make. You lose count of time itself. At one point, you notice the other apprentice cursing as he ruins a scythe edge. The master stalks over and rips it from his hands, demonstrating with slow, deliberate swings. "Control," he says. "You're not killing it. You're shaping it." Historians still argue whether masters were genuinely good teachers or just abusive tyrants with useful skills. Watching this, you think it's both. You're called over to help file the nail holes in the finished horseshoes. Your arms ache so badly you can barely hold the file steady. "Faster," the master says. You glare at him. He doesn't even blink. You work faster. Outside, you can hear the village alive with afternoon noise. Children laughing, women gossiping, dogs barking. Normal life. You scrape and file, sweat dripping onto the iron. Your shirt is soaked. Your hair is plastered to your forehead with grime. Your eyes burn from smoke. "Next," the master says, shoving another shoe at you. You take it. Of course you do. You notice the other apprentice has gone quiet. He's just working now, lips pressed tight. You realize you must look the same. Because this is it. This is the job. It's not forging legendary swords. It's not crafting masterpieces. It's making sure a farmer's horse doesn't go lame. It's fixing the scythe that'll cut next season's wheat. It's keeping the village running in ways no one ever thanks you for. You finish the last shoe. The master checks it, grunts, and sets it aside. "Eat," he says. You blink, realizing you're starving. He tosses you a hunk of stale bread and the same salty cheese. You eat it without tasting it. You wash it down with a swig of thin ale, which only barely cuts the ash coating your mouth. You lean back against the wall. Your muscles throb. Your blisters sting. Your back feels like it might snap. But you're done. For now. You close your eyes for just a second, listening to the crackle of the forge. And you know, without needing to be told, that there's more waiting. Always more. Because the work never ends. Because the village needs you. Even if they never say thank you. Even if you hate every second of it. You're the blacksmith's apprentice, and this is your life. Meal breaks aren't really breaks. You wolf down your bread and cheese in a corner, leaning on a barrel that wobbles unsettlingly every time you shift your weight. The ale is warm and flat, but it at least cuts the taste of soot in your mouth. The other apprentice sits a few feet away, chewing with glazed eyes. He doesn't even bother to insult you this time. You're both too tired for that. You catch the master watching you. He's perched on a crate, legs spread wide, arms resting on his knees. He takes a slow pull from his own flask and wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. "Don't get too comfortable," he says. You snort, as if that were an option. He gestures vaguely at the forge. "We've got repairs waiting." You squint through the smoke. Sure enough, there's a sad little pile of broken blades, twisted hinges, a snapped sickle, and something that might once have been a frying pan. You sigh so deeply it feels like you might deflate. The master stands and cracks his neck. "Let's move." You force yourself up. Your knees pop, your back screams, but you move. He grabs the broken sickle first, holding it up like it's a dead rat. "Merchant brought this in yesterday, says it broke for no reason." He snorts. "Cheap metal, bad weld, blames me, of course." He tosses it at you. You catch it awkwardly. "Fix it." Mainstream historical fact. Blacksmiths often had to repair bad work from traveling smiths, cheap imports, or even their own rushed jobs. Customers rarely understood why things failed, but they always blamed the local smith. You run your finger along the fracture. It's jagged, ugly, rust already creeping in. The other apprentice mutters, "Good luck." You ignore him. You heat the blade, watching it glow through a haze of smoke. The bellows wheeze beside you, pushed in rhythm by your sullen coworker. You hammer carefully, trying not to spread the crack. You add flux, grab the tongs, tap, tap, tap. It's delicate, fussy work. "Don't force it," the master says behind you. "It'll split wider." You grit your teeth, your hands shake, sweat runs into your eyes, but you manage. The crack closes enough to hold. You quench it with a hiss and check it. Passable, the master says, grabbing it and tossing it onto the repaired pile. You want to scream at him to just say, "Good job," but you don't. You get handed the next item, a bent hinge. The master says nothing this time. He knows you know what to do. You heat, hammer, bend, quench, repeat. It's endless. Outside, you can hear people yelling about prices at the market, chickens clucking, a distant dog barking its head off. In here, it's just you, the other apprentice, the master, and the fire. Always the fire. The master sets up at the second anvil, working on the snapped blade. He's not even pretending to be gentle. Sparks fly in every direction. He curses constantly. Cheap, bloody, crap. He growls with every hammer blow. You almost laugh, but you're too busy trying not to ruin the hinge you're working on. Quirky tidbit. Some blacksmiths charged extra for repairs, just to deter customers from bringing back shoddy junk. Others didn't bother. They just melted it down for scrap. You finish the hinge. The master doesn't even look. He just points at the next thing, the sad frying pan. You grab it, suppressing a groan. It has a crack right through the base. You're not even sure it can be saved. The master finally glances over. Don't waste time. They can buy a new one. Put it in the scrap. You exhale in relief and toss it in the corner. Your fellow apprentice is working on nails. Dozens of them. He has to straighten bent ones, resharpen tips, clean the rust. He's muttering curses in time with every hammer tap. You swap jobs eventually. He gets the next repair, a busted horseshoe with one of the nail holes broken clean out. You get the nails? Lucky you. You line them up on the anvil. Heat, hammer, shape. Over and over. Your mind drifts into a half-asleep trance. The sounds are the same, the crackle of flame, the groan of bellows, the ring of iron. Your hands move almost on their own. Faster, the master says, not even looking up. You grit your teeth? Historians still argue whether smiths kept perfect records of these jobs or just worked from memory. Watching your master, you're guessing it's memory and pure spite. You finish the nails. The master nods slightly. That's it. That's all the praise you get. He grabs a rusted hinge from the done pile and examines it. He runs his fingers over your work and grunts. Could be worse, he says. Your fellow apprentice mimes gagging behind his back. You almost smile. Almost. Then the master points at the pile of scrap in the corner. Break it down, he says. You stare at it. Bent tools, broken blades, unrecognizable lumps. Usable bits in there. He explains. Cut them. Separate good from bad. We'll smelt it later. Your heart sinks. Your fellow apprentice snorts. Have fun. You flip him off behind the master's back and get to work. You drag the scrap over to the chopping block. Really just a massive stump with iron straps nailed around it. You use a cold chisel and a small sledge, cutting off anything worth saving. The clangs ring in your ears. Your palms blister anew. Every strike sends shockwaves up your arms. Good iron goes in one pile, junk in another. You think you might cry. The master doesn't care. He just keeps working, the other apprentice keeps working, and you all keep breathing in the same hot, acrid air. Outside, you hear the church bell toll for vespers. Evening already? You realize you've been at it for hours without noticing. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. The master finally straightens up. He rolls his shoulders with a series of pops that make you wince. Enough, he says. You drop the chisel like it's molten. He surveys the piles. He nods. Tomorrow we smelt it, he says. Your fellow apprentice groans. You don't say anything. You just wipe your face and look at your blackened hands. Because you know he's right. Because you know there's always more tomorrow. And because you know you'll do it. You have no choice. You barely sleep that night. The forge never truly goes dark. Its dying coals glowing like the malevolent eyes of a beast waiting to wake up. You lie on the filthy straw mattress, listening to the wind batter the warped walls, but inside it's suffocatingly warm and thick with yesterday's smoke. Every time you close your eyes, you see iron glowing orange on the anvil. You hear the master's voice barking orders in your dreams, the ring of hammer on metal jolting you awake before you even realize you'd drifted off. The other apprentice snores beside the hearth, sprawled like a corpse in the half-light. You envy him. When the master kicks you both awake at some hour that might generously be called before dawn, your bones feel like they're made of rust. You groan. He ignores it. Up, he says. You scramble up, blinking grit from your eyes, hands fumbling for your shoes. The floor is freezing, even though the hearth is warm. Fire first, he says, as if you don't know by now. You move to the bellows automatically, muscles already screaming in protest. You hate how familiar it is. The master shovels in fresh coal while you pump. Sparks swirl lazily in the gloom, lighting the walls in flickering shapes that look like monsters dancing. Faster, he mutters. You squeeze the bellows until the old leather wheezes and creaks. Flames bloom, licking high enough to snap at your face if you lean in too close. Your fellow apprentice joins you, sullen and bleary-eyed, shoving you aside for his turn at the bellows. You don't fight him. You're too tired. The master looks between you both, squinting like he's deciding whether you're worth feeding today. Then he spits in the fire. A ritual you've come to expect. Quirky tidbit. Spitting in the forge was believed by some to ward off evil spirits that might make the fire die or ruin the work. Your master swears by it. Work today's simple, he says. Repairs and taxman's order. You flinch. Taxman. He points to the pile of iron stock you cut yesterday. It's a sad, uneven pile of semi-usable lengths. 10 new blades. Not fancy, but straight. Sharp. Pass inspection. You know what that means. Hours of heat. Hammer, grind, quench, repeat. You swallow hard. The other apprentice lets out a string of curses under his breath. The master ignores him. He hands you both chunks of iron and nods toward the hearth. Go on. You grip the tongs with blistered hands, feeding the cold iron to the roaring fire. It takes forever to heat. The bellows never stop. Even when you trade off with the other apprentice, there's no real break. Your arms are noodles. Your eyes burn. Your back is a solid bar of pain. But you keep going, because you have to. When the iron is finally glowing, you haul it out. The master doesn't even watch you. He's busy prepping more stock. You set the bar on the anvil, line up the hammer, and swing. Clang, clang, clang. The sound drills into your skull like a curse. Sparks snap at your arms, leaving little burns that you don't even bother brushing off anymore. You try to keep the edge straight, you try not to bend it too thin, you try not to let it cool too fast. You fail a few times. The master corrects you by snatching the hammer away and demonstrating with 3 precise blows that somehow fix everything you just ruined. He says nothing as he hands it back. You work in silence. Your fellow apprentice does the same at the second anvil. Occasionally you both glance at each other with pure hatred for the job, but not for each other. Misery is the only thing you have in common. Mainstream historical fact. Taxmen often placed bulk orders for weapons to arm levies, with strict quotas and deadlines that could bankrupt a smith who failed. No pressure, right? You finish the first blade. It's ugly, but it's straight. The master nods once. Next. You almost cry. You don't, though. You do the next one, and the next, and the next. Hours pass. You lose track of them. The only thing that marks time is the church bell in the village square. You hear it toll, muffled through the thick walls, marking the hours you're losing to this nightmare. The master calls for a break that's barely long enough to gulp stale ale and chew hard bread that tastes like ash. Your fellow apprentice sits across from you on the floor. You don't even insult each other. You're too busy trying not to fall asleep mid-chew. Drink, the master orders, tossing you both another splash of ale. You obey. It burns going down. Back to work. Of course. You rise. Your legs tremble. Your hands are raw, wrapped in filthy rags that pass for bandages. You take the next bar of iron, feed it to the fire. Bellows, heat, hammer, quench, grind, repeat. You think you might be in hell. You notice the master watching you both at one point. His eyes are hard, but there's something behind them. Some understanding that this is awful but necessary. Better, he mutters when you finish another blade. That one word is enough to keep you going. Historians still argue whether apprentices were treated as cheap labor or true students. Watching your master, you suspect it's both. By dusk, you're both shaking with exhaustion. 10 blades sit in a row, crooked but sharp enough. The master surveys them. Good enough, he says finally. Your fellow apprentice lets out a ragged laugh that sounds like a sob. You don't even react. You just slump against the wall, watching the forge die down to red embers. The master spits into the fire one last time. Tomorrow, he says, we deliver. You swallow hard, because you know what that means. The tax man, the threat of rejection, the threat of fines, the threat of the master taking it out on you. But you'll do it, because you have no choice. Because you're the blacksmith's apprentice. Because this is your life now. Morning comes with the same grim routine, but there's a new tension in the air. Even before the first bellows pull, before the first shovel of coal hits the fire, the master is muttering under his breath. He paces the forge like a caged animal, throwing sharp glances at the stack of finished blades lined up for inspection. You and the other apprentice share a look, but don't speak. You both know what today is, delivery day, and that means dealing with the tax man. You start the fire in near silence, the old bellows creaking as the flames gather strength. Orange glow spills over the dirt floor, illuminating the soot-streaked walls and the piles of iron scrap waiting for another life. You pump in a steady rhythm, trying to warm up your stiff shoulders. The master suddenly barks, "Enough!" You stop, blinking. He stands over the blades, picking them up one by one, inspecting them in the wavering light. His face is carved from stone. Crooked, he mutters at one. He sets it down hard enough that it skitters across the table. Too thin, he says of another, flicking it with a thick nail. He points at you without looking. Yours. Your stomach drops. The other apprentice snorts, but quickly smothers it when the master's eyes flick his way. Mainstream historical fact: blacksmiths were constantly at odds with clients over quality, especially officials who didn't care how hard it was to get good iron. Close enough could get you paid or fined. The master shoves the bad blades back at you both. Fix them. He growls. But you start, voice cracking. He cuts you off with a glare that could melt iron faster than the forge. Fix them. You clamp your mouth shut. So you do. You haul the offending blades back to the hearth, trading off with the other apprentice on bellows duty. The forge roars to life again, sucking the oxygen from the room and replacing it with fire and sweat. You watch the steel go from dull black to that deep hypnotic orange. You hate how beautiful it is. You pull the first blade out. It's warped just enough to fail any inspection. You lay it on the anvil and start tapping it back into shape. Tap. 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 Each hit is measured, delicate, infuriating. Sparks fly off like angry insects. Too hard, the master grunts behind you. You'll crack it. You ease up. Your arms tremble with exhaustion, but you keep going. Beside you, the other apprentice is fixing the thin edge on his blade. He mutters curses with every stroke, sweat dripping off his nose. You trade places. Bellows, heat, hammer. Bellows, heat. It's endless. Quirky tidbit. Blacksmith guilds often had strict rules about copying designs or stealing clients. But out here in the countryside, no guild enforcers, just rumors, threats, and the occasional beating behind the tavern. You remember the master warning you both? If word gets out we can't deliver, they'll go to Matthias. Matthias, the rival smith in the next village. Rumor is he'd undercut anyone, even if his work was worse. You work faster. Finally, the blades are acceptable. Not perfect, not pretty, but straight enough. The master doesn't say good, he just grunts. He lines them up on the table. 12 blades. Enough to meet the order and have a couple extra for bribes, as he so elegantly put it yesterday. You're ordered to clean the shop. That doesn't mean mop and polish. It means scraping ash off the hearth bricks, sweeping soot into a pathetic pile, and dumping the water in the quenching trough outside. Your arms are jelly. Your hands are black, even under the nails. Your eyes sting from the smoke that never truly clears. But you move. Because if you stop, the master will notice. And if he notices, you'll regret it. Historians still argue whether these village smithies were really that filthy, or if we romanticize them as rustic. Standing in here now, you know the truth. This isn't rustic. It's disgusting. By the time the floor is clean, your back feels like it's been cracked in half. The master looks you both over, eyes narrowed. Presentable, he says. You share a glance with the other apprentice. He mouths, barely. You stifle a laugh. Shut up, the master says, but there's the ghost of a smirk on his face. That's as close to camaraderie as you're getting. Then the sound you've been dreading. Hooves on packed dirt outside. A voice calls, "Blacksmith." You freeze. The master doesn't. He squares his shoulders, wipes his hands on his apron, and strides to the door. "Mind yourselves," he growls over his shoulder. You and the other apprentice stand there, too scared to breathe. Outside you hear low voices, a man's sharper official tone. The master's rumbling replies, the occasional forced laugh that doesn't sound the least bit amused. You risk a glance out the cracked door. It's the tax collector, resplendent in a half-rusted breastplate that he polishes more than he wears. He's astride a tired-looking horse, flanked by 2 bored guards. He leans down to inspect the blades laid out for him. He picks one up, squints at it. Your stomach knots. "Acceptable," he says finally, voice oily. The master doesn't relax. "Payment?" he asks. The taxman's smile is pure poison. "Of course, minus the handling fee." Your master doesn't argue. He just nods stiffly. Coins clink. Not as many as you'd hoped. You and the other apprentice share a look of utter despair. Mainstream historical fact. Local lords and taxmen often shortchanged smiths, knowing full well they couldn't refuse the work without risking worse. The taxman tosses a final glance at the forge. "Busy, I see. Shouldn't slack off. War might come this way again." He kicks his horse lightly and moves on without waiting for a reply. The master stands there a moment longer, watching him go, jaw working like he's chewing rocks. When he finally turns back, he pockets the coins without a word. You see it in his face. Rage he can't afford to show. He gestures at you both. "Back in," he says quietly. You obey. Inside, the forge is dim again. The coals have settled to a sullen red. The air feels thicker somehow, like even the fire is sulking. The master doesn't speak for a long time. Then finally, "Clean up, then rest. We've got work tomorrow." You and the other apprentice nod. Because what else is there to say? Because this is the job. Because you have no choice. Because you're the blacksmith's apprentices. And the village will keep needing you, even if it never, ever says thank you. The forge doesn't sleep, even when you do. You lie on your straw mattress that night, listening to the embers crackle and shift. The red glow pulses in the dark like a watching eye. Every time you drift off, you wake choking on the stale smoke that refuses to clear, even with the door cracked open. Your fellow apprentice mutters in his sleep. You can't tell if he's cursing the master, the forge, or both. Probably both. You close your eyes and imagine you're anywhere else. A field, a bed in a real house, anywhere without the stink of sweat and burned iron. But even your dreams smell like smoke now. And even as you try to fall deeper into that fitful half-sleep, you know you'll have to wake up. Because the fire can't die. It's still warm when the master's voice snaps you awake hours later. Bellows. No greeting. No apology for yanking you out of a dream about cool rain on your face. You stagger over, shoes scraping on the dirt floor, hair plastered to your forehead with old sweat. You grab the handles and start pumping. The air wheezes through the leather, the coals brighten. The temperature in the forge rises by the second, replacing the chilly pre-dawn cold with a suffocating wall of heat. Your fellow apprentice joins you a moment later. He looks like death, eyes red-rimmed, hair matted. You both trade off without speaking. The master paces behind you. He doesn't look much better, eyes sunken, beard stiff with soot, but he's moving, and that's enough. He starts laying out iron bars on the table, checking their shape, tossing aside those too bent or pitted for the day's work. "Orders today?" your fellow apprentice finally dares to ask. The master doesn't look up. Hinges, latches, horseshoes, whatever needs doing. You groan. He ignores you. Mainstream historical fact. For most village blacksmiths, night forges were a necessity. Not because they loved the overtime, but because work couldn't stop, just because the sun did. Sometimes fires had to be kept going overnight, especially if they'd taken days to heat to the right level. You feel that in your bones. The master orders you both to check the quenching trough. It's half empty and filthy with old slag and flakes of iron. "Outside," he says. You and your fellow apprentice drag the heavy bucket out into the cool dawn air. The relief is so immediate you both stop for a second just to breathe. You realize how awful you must look to the villagers trudging past on the road, black-faced, hair matted, clothes burned in spots. One old woman gives you a look of pity. You want to tell her not to bother. You dump the trough water in the ditch. It hisses and steams where it hits the cold ground. Then you haul the bucket to the well. It's back-breaking. Your shoulders are knots of pain. Your palms are raw, the makeshift bandages you sleep in still stained from yesterday's blood. You trade insults quietly while you work, because it's the only thing keeping you awake. Nice hair, your fellow apprentice snarks. Nice smell, you shoot back. Your mother would cry if she saw you. She already cries. I chose this. You both bark out a miserable laugh. Then you fill the bucket. You haul it back in and dump it in the trough. The master just grunts. Bellows, he says again. You obey. Quirky tidbit. Some forges were known to burn down entire villages if left unattended at night. The risk was constant. Masters would sleep with one eye open, always listening for the wrong crackle of flame. You get why now. The forge is alive, and it's hungry. You take turns feeding coal. The air turns from cool to stifling in minutes. Your skin shines with sweat you can't wipe away because your hands are black with soot. The master starts shaping hinges next. He shows you once in total silence. He heats the iron to glowing, lays it on the anvil, and folds it in 2 smooth swings. Like that, he says. Then he hands you the hammer. You want to tell him your arms are dead. But you don't. You swing. Clang. Sparks dance. He corrects you by smacking your wrist. Wrong angle. You grit your teeth and try again. It takes 5 tries before you get one that doesn't look like it was made by a drunk child. He doesn't praise you. He just moves on. The other apprentice is shaping latches at the second anvil. He curses every few seconds, but he doesn't stop. The master stalks between you both, correcting angles, telling you when the heat's too low or the hammer's too hard. Gentle, he tells you at one point. You're not killing it. Historians still argue whether medieval masters were sadistic or just practical. Watching yours, you think it's both. Hours pass like years. You can't tell if it's morning or evening. The forge light doesn't change. The smoke makes the windows gray. You get burned twice, once on the tongs, once when you fumble and brush the anvil's glowing edge. You don't even cry out. You just hiss and keep working. The master finally calls for a break when he sees you both listing on your feet like drunks. Eat, he orders. He tosses you hard bread and that same brick of salty cheese. You don't even complain anymore. You chew automatically, barely tasting it. The ale is warm and flat, but you drink it like it's a gift from heaven. Your fellow apprentice sits opposite you, legs sprawled, eyes closed. He opens one bleary eye. Fun job, he rasps. You snort, mouth full. Best ever. You manage. You both laugh like idiots, too tired to care. The master doesn't join in. He just watches you both with that same hard stare. Then he stands. Breaks over. You groan. But you move. Because you have to. Because the forge is still hot. Because the village needs hinges. Because the forge doesn't sleep. And neither do you. You're back on your feet before you even finish chewing the last mouthful of bread. The master doesn't wait. He's already tossing another iron blank at you. It hits your chest and clangs onto the dirt floor. Pick it up, he says. You do, wincing as your knees pop in protest. Your hands shake with exhaustion, the half-healed blisters threatening to split open again. Your fellow apprentice mutters, Careful, don't drop it on your foot. I don't want to haul you to the barber surgeon. You glare. Shut up. But you can't even muster true anger. The master gives you both a look like he's debating throwing you in the fire just to make better apprentices out of you. Then he turns back to his own anvil. Today's work? More of the same. Nails, hinges, latches, tools for the farmers who'll pay late, or worse, pay in vegetables. You haul the iron over to the forge. The heat hits you in the face like an open oven door. Your eyes water instantly, smoke curling up your nose in black strings. Bellows. The other apprentice shoves you aside to take over. He's snickering, but it's hollow. You elbow him in the ribs just hard enough to hear the satisfying grunt. Children, the master growls without looking. You trade off, silent now except for gritted teeth, because this is where it gets brutal. Apprentice hazing isn't official. It's not a lesson the master teaches, but it happens. Always. Your fellow apprentice accidentally switches the tools you need with ones that are too small or too big. He forgets to pump the bellows when it's your turn at the anvil, so the heat dips and ruins the color you need. You're not innocent either. You swipe the last good rasp, so he's stuck with the dull one. You miss handing him the tongs, so he nearly grabs the hot iron with bare hands. It's stupid, childish, dangerous, but it's the only power you have in this hellhole. Mainstream historical fact: blacksmith apprenticeships could last 7 years or more, and older apprentices often bullied younger ones to establish pecking order. Even guilds turned a blind eye to hazing. Your master pretends he doesn't see it, but you see the twitch at the corner of his mouth. He's seen it before. You're trying to reheat an iron blank when your fellow apprentice helpfully bumps you. It drops. Clang. Sparks. The master turns so fast you nearly fall over. What the hell was that? He shoved me, you snap. Liar, the other apprentice says. The master steps between you both. His face is thunder. You think this is funny? You think you're here to play? You both drop your eyes to the floor. Look at me, he snarls. You obey. His eyes are bloodshot, ringed with soot unblinking. You keep this up. One of you is leaving here in a box. Understand? You nod. The other apprentice mutters, Yes, master. He doesn't let it go immediately. You think this is hard? It is. It's supposed to be. This isn't weaving. This isn't farming. This is controlling fire. This is bending iron. It's dangerous. It's lethal. And it doesn't care if you live or die. He points at the hearth. That doesn't care about you. It just wants to eat. And if you can't work together to keep it alive, it'll kill you both. Historians still argue whether blacksmith masters were cruel or just realistic. Watching yours right now, you know it's both. He finally backs away, shaking his head. Back to work? He growls. You pick up the blank. Your fellow apprentice grabs the bellows handle. You don't look at each other, but you don't sabotage each other again either. Quirky tidbit. In some towns, apprentices who killed each other in the forge by accident or otherwise were buried with iron shackles to warn the village their ghosts might be angry. You believe it. You heat the iron until it's the right color. Orange, bright but not white. You know it by heart now. You move to the anvil. The master actually watches you this time. Easy, he says. You swing. Clang, clang, clang. It starts to shape the way it should. You bite back a smile. The master doesn't praise you, but he doesn't correct you either, which is its own reward. Your fellow apprentice heats his piece next. He doesn't sabotage you this time. He even asks, voice grudging, Bellows? You nod and take over. It's an unspoken truce. You're both too tired to keep fighting. By midday, you're drenched in sweat. The forge is a furnace. The walls drip with condensation where the heat meets the morning chill. The smoke is so thick, you're sure you'll be coughing it up until you're old. You break just long enough to gnaw on stale bread and gulp ale that tastes like someone strained it through charcoal. You don't talk. You just breathe. The master finally sighs. All right, enough sitting. Back to it. You haul yourself up. Your legs shake. Your arms are rubber, but you move. Because you have to. Because if you don't, you'll get kicked out. And where would you go? Back to the farm? To the streets? No. Better here. Even with the burns and the sweat and the insults, better to have a trade. You watch your fellow apprentice light the next fire, the bellows groaning like a dying beast. He glances at you. Your turn, he says without a hint of mockery. You nod, and you take it, because that's what apprentices do. They take it. All of it. And they keep going. Even when it burns, even when it hurts, even when it scars. Because that's how you survive, because that's how you learn, because that's how you become the master someday. If you live that long. The forge isn't just heat and noise. It's superstition. You don't realize that at first. You're too busy sweating, coughing, and wondering if your arms are going to fall off. But after a few days of the master's grumbling and your fellow apprentices' whispered curses, you start to notice the little things. Like how the master spits in the fire every morning, or the way he traces a crude sign on the anvil before starting a big job, or the weird bundle of dried herbs nailed above the door. You point at it one day while wiping sweat from your brow. What's that supposed to do? The other apprentice doesn't even look up from pumping the bellows. Keep demons out. You snort. The master doesn't. He turns, eyes hard. Laugh, boy. Go ahead. You close your mouth. He jabs a thick finger at the hearth, the flames crackling and popping like they're listening in. That's not just fire, he says. That's life and death. If it dies, we're ruined. If it runs away, we're dead. You respect it, or it'll take you. Mainstream historical fact. Medieval smiths were often considered half sorcerers, half craftsmen. Villagers brought them work, but also feared the strange, fiery world they lived in. Your fellow apprentice adds, they say the fire remembers. If you insult it, it won't heat right for days. You roll your eyes but don't say anything, because the master is still glaring at you. He finally turns back to his work, muttering under his breath in a language you don't recognize. Quirky tidbit. Some blacksmiths whispered charms while forging, convinced that words shaped the metal as much as the hammer did. You file that away. You're not stupid. You may not believe it, but you're not going to risk the master's boot for calling him crazy. Later that day, you're tasked with hauling scrap to the hearth for smelting. You grumble the whole time. Your fellow apprentice doesn't help. He's too busy prepping flux and humming something tuneless and unnerving. Why are you doing that? You ask, irritated. He shrugs. Master says it keeps the slag soft. You stare. That's stupid, he grins without humor. Say that louder, I dare you. You glance over. The master is watching like a hawk. You shut up. When you start feeding the bellows again, you can't help but whisper something under your breath. You're not sure what. Just words. You feel like an idiot, but the fire burns hotter. The master nods once, doesn't say a thing, but he saw. You realize then you're not just learning to shape iron, you're learning to live with the forge, to treat it like it's alive, because in here it is. Your burns are proof, your blisters are, the smoke in your lungs is proof. Historians still argue whether medieval blacksmiths really believed in spirits, or if it was just habit, tradition, ritual. But standing here, squinting through heat, haze, and ash, you see why they might have. Because you don't control the fire. You bargain with it, you threaten it, you plead with it, you work with it, or you die. The master finally growls, enough talk. You both shut up instantly. He lays out the next task. More hinges for the manor, 2 broken hose for repair, and a request for new latches from the alehouse. You want to groan. He doesn't let you. Work, he says. You obey. You drag the iron to the hearth. You pump the bellows, your arms ache, your back is one giant knot, and your eyes are gritty with soot. But you don't complain, because you don't want the master's boot in your backside, or worse, his disappointed silence. You notice your fellow apprentice glancing at the door more than usual. Expecting someone? You mutter. He just shakes his head. You don't push, because you know. Everyone's afraid of visitors, not just customers who complain, but other smiths, the rivals. The ones who say the master's work isn't good enough. The ones who accuse him of stealing designs. Quirky tidbit. In some places, blacksmiths sabotaged each other's work, spread rumors about cursed forges, even stole apprentices. You remember the master talking about Matthias in the next village. The look in his eyes. You don't want to see that again. So you keep working. You finish a hinge. It's ugly but solid. The master doesn't even glance at it. He just says, next. You hate him a little, but you also want to be him. Because he knows what he's doing. Because he doesn't flinch at the fire. Because he doesn't fear the spirits. Or if he does, he's made his peace with them. You swing the hammer. Clang, clang, clang. It's the only sound that matters now. The fire roars. The bellows groan. The smoke fills your lungs. And you keep going. Because you're not leaving. Because you have nowhere else to go. Because you're the apprentice. And this is your life now. By now, your skin is a permanent shade of gray, no matter how hard you scrub. The soot works its way into every pore, under your nails, in your hair. Even your teeth feel gritty when you grind them at night, trying to fall asleep on that lumpy straw mattress that smells like old sweat and failure. But worse than the filth are the burns. Your hands look like maps of pain, pink, shiny scars where blisters popped, dark, angry spots where hot iron branded you by accident. Or, let's be honest, by your own clumsy handling. You flex your fingers in the dim dawn glow, testing how stiff they are. When you try to make a fist, the skin cracks. You hiss. "Quit your whining," the master says from across the room, not even looking up from sorting scrap. You snap your mouth shut. He tosses you a lumpy jar. "Pig fat. Smear it on. Don't get it in your eyes." You take it, trying not to gag at the smell. It's rancid, slimy, but you smear it on your hands anyway. The relief is instant. The fat seals the cracks, dulls the sting. Mainstream historical fact: medieval smiths used animal fats for burns and cracked skin because it was cheap and slightly protective. Forget fancy balms. This is what you get. Your fellow apprentice holds out his own blackened paws. "Share." You glare but pass it over. He grunts thanks and starts rubbing it in with all the enthusiasm of a pig rolling in mud. "Smells like death," he mutters. "Better than burning." You shoot back. You both laugh, weak, tired, but real. The master doesn't smile, but he doesn't yell either, which is basically affection. "Enough," he says finally. "Work." Of course, you shuffle to the hearth, checking the coals. Still alive, barely. You grab the bellows handles and start pumping. The old leather creaks like a dying beast. You time the rhythm to your breathing. In, out, squeeze, release. The forge flares reluctantly, licking at the iron you'd stacked last night in preparation. You feel the heat on your raw hands. The fat melts, making them slippery. You almost drop the handles but catch yourself in time. "Focus," the master snaps. You grit your teeth and keep going. The other apprentice is dragging in a pile of dull chisels that need sharpening. He dumps them with a clatter that makes the master wince. "Gentle, you idiot," the master growls. "Steel's expensive. We can't replace it if you chip it." The other apprentice mutters an apology. You trade off at the bellows so he can start at the grindstone. He cranks the wheel with a steady rhythm while pressing the chisel edge to it, sending a fan of sparks into the gloom. You watch for a second, mesmerized. It's like tiny orange fireflies. "Quit gawking," he snaps. You roll your eyes and shove him gently. He shoves back. The master doesn't even look up. He's used to it. Quirky tidbit. Some smiths claimed river stones made the best sharpening wheels, and they'd haul them for miles just for the right grit. You think about that as you move to the hearth and drag out the iron you're supposed to shape into nails. Because it's always nails. You grab the hammer, fingers sticking slightly from the pig fat. Clang, clang, clang. The rhythm is hypnotic, but it's also grating. Your arms feel like they're being torn from the sockets. Your blisters threaten mutiny with every swing. You finish one nail, toss it into the pile. "Next," the master says without even looking. You want to throw the hammer at him, but you don't, because you want to keep your job. You want to keep eating, even if it's stale bread and salty cheese, even if the ale tastes like dirty water. You move to the next piece of iron. Heat it. Bellows. Wait for that perfect orange glow. You're getting better at reading it. The master noticed yesterday. He didn't say anything, but he didn't insult you either. That's something. Your fellow apprentice mutters curses under his breath at the grindstone. You can see the sweat dripping off his nose, leaving dark circles on the dirt floor. You can't help it. You smirk. "Shut up," he says without even looking. "I didn't say anything. You were thinking it." You laugh. It feels good, even if it's cut short by the master clearing his throat meaningfully. You shut up immediately, because you know what happens if you push it. The master moves between you both, checking your work. He picks up a nail you just finished, turns it in the firelight. He doesn't say anything. He sets it down. That's praise. Historians still argue whether medieval apprentices got real instruction or just learned by failing. You know the truth. It's both. The master shows you once, then he expects you to do it. No matter how many times you screw up, no matter how much you bleed. You pick up the hammer again. Your fingers are slippery with pig fat. You wipe them on your filthy apron, which only makes it worse. You swing anyway. Clang, clang, clang. The metal yields slowly. You squint at it, trying to see if the shaft is straight. You tap it with the flat of the hammer, adjusting. It's ugly, but it'll work. You toss it into the pile. Next, the master says, you sigh, but you obey, because you're the apprentice, because this is your life, because no one else is going to do it for you, and because, somewhere in the back of your smoke-choked brain, you actually want to get better. Even if it kills you. By now you've accepted that the blacksmith shop is both your workplace and your prison. But here's the strange part. The village doesn't see you that way. They see you as necessary. You start to notice it on delivery days when farmers come in to collect sharpened hoes or newly forged hinges. They don't exactly smile at you, but they nod. They wait their turn. They pay when they can, or they barter. This morning a farmer brings a basket of eggs as payment for a batch of nails. The master doesn't even flinch. He inspects the eggs like a jeweler checking diamonds before grunting acceptance. Count them, he orders you. You do. Carefully. Your fingers are so thick with callus you worry you'll crush them, but you manage. 12, you say. He nods once. The deal is done. Mainstream historical fact. Many medieval transactions were barter-based, especially in small villages where coin was scarce. Smiths accepted everything from eggs to beer to labor. The farmer thanks the master. Doesn't thank you, but he gives you a look. It's not respect exactly, but it's not contempt either. It's need. He needs you to keep his farm running. You swallow that realization and turn back to the forge. Your fellow apprentice is pumping the bellows. He shoots you a look of mock elegance. Eggs. We're rolling in luxury now. You snort. Shut up. Want one? He looks genuinely tempted before making a face. Boiled in the quench trough? You both gag at the thought and laugh. The master doesn't even yell this time. He just says, work. So you do. You're shaping more nails when a woman from the village arrives, clutching a broken pot handle. The master listens to her explanation with all the warmth of a frozen lake, but doesn't turn her away. 3 coppers, he says. She winces but nods. He gestures to you. Fix it. You take the handle carefully, examining the fracture. It's cracked halfway through. Not clean. You'll have to heat it, flatten it slightly, overlay it, and hammer weld it. The woman watches you, arms crossed. You ignore the sweat trickling down your spine. You work. Bellows, heat, orange glow, anvil, clang, clang, careful, gentle. You can feel her eyes on you the whole time. It's worse than the master watching. When you quench it, steam explodes with that iron blood smell that's become your life. You hand it back. She tests the mend with tentative fingers. She doesn't thank you. But she pays, and she leaves. Your fellow apprentice leans over. Marry her, you think? You elbow him hard enough to make him yelp. The master doesn't even look up. Quirky tidbit. Blacksmiths were often seen as good matches because they had a trade, even if they smelled like smoke and sweat and curses. You finish your next nail. Your arms are rubber, but you keep going, because the village keeps coming. They bring more things to mend. A bent latch, a cracked sickle, a horseshoe that somehow split down the middle. You work on them all. Bellows, heat, hammer, quench, repeat. The master grumbles about the cheap iron merchants keep selling, swearing it was better in his day. Historians still argue whether iron quality truly declined in certain regions, or if smiths just like to complain. You suspect it's both. Your fellow apprentice finishes a batch of nails and drops them in the payment box with a rattle. Good enough, the master says without even glancing. That's high praise. Outside you hear the village living its normal life. Children yelling, chickens clucking, someone arguing over bread prices. You're not part of it. You're the blacksmith's apprentice. You're necessary, but you're a part. You keep working. Because if you stop, the master will see, and he'll say nothing. But that's worse than yelling. You take a short break, leaning against the wall. Your back is one solid bar of pain. Your fellow apprentice slumps beside you, head back, eyes closed. You smell worse than the pig pen, he says without opening them. Better than you reply. He snorts. It's practically friendship now. You sip warm ale that tastes like ashes. You listen to the forge crackle. The master sits on his stool, arms folded, watching the door, always watching. Because someone might come. Someone will always come. Because they need you. Even if they hate you. Even if they never say thank you. You're the ones who keep their lives running, You're the ones who make sure their tools work, their horses don't go lame, their hinges don't break. You're the blacksmith's apprentices, and in a way, that means you're the village's beating heart. A grimy, soot-choked, blistered heart. But a necessary one. You finish your ale. The master stands. Breaks over. Of course it is. You shove yourself upright. Your fellow apprentice groans, but follows. You both move back to the forge. Back to the heat. Back to the smoke. Back to the work. Because it never stops. Because they need you. Because you're the blacksmith's apprentices, and this is your life. You wake up, and your body doesn't want to move. Your back has seized into a single screaming knot. Your arms feel like they've been used for hammer practice. Your fingers ache with every twitch. The skin's splitting at old blisters despite the pig fat you slathered on before collapsing. You groan. Your fellow apprentice is already half-dressed, hair sticking up in every direction, face black with yesterday's soot. He glances at you. Dead? Wish I was. He snorts. Same. No sympathy there. You drag yourself upright, bones popping. Your mattress is nothing but flattened straw. The floor is cold dirt, the hearth still warm from the coals you both took turns feeding in the middle of the night. Because if the fire dies, you get to start from nothing. And the master will make sure you regret that. The master himself is already up. Of course he is. He doesn't sleep so much as wait, like a gargoyle that occasionally mutters insults. He's stirring the hearth with an iron rod, checking the heat. Get moving, he says without looking at you. Your fellow apprentice elbows you in the ribs on his way past. Bellows. You mutter curses under your breath, but grab the handles. Your palms are already raw. The creaking rhythm is as familiar as your own breathing now. In, out, squeeze, release. The fire brightens reluctantly, embers flaring into life, licking up the coal you shove in. Your fellow apprentice takes over without a word when your arms tremble too much to keep going. The master starts listing today's orders in that gravelly voice. Hinges, nails, 2 hose, 3 shoes, that broken blade from yesterday. You groan. He hears it. Problem? You shut up immediately, because you know better. Mainstream historical fact. Blacksmiths didn't get days off. Even Sunday might mean emergency repairs or stoking coals, so they didn't go out. Iron didn't care about your schedule. You move automatically to the hearth, watching the metal bars heat. The color changes through dull red, brighter orange. You're learning when it's right. The master notices, doesn't say anything, but he doesn't insult you. High praise. You pull the glowing bar to the anvil, line it up, swing, clang, clang. Your wrist sparks fly, clang. You adjust your grip so you don't drop it, clang. Your fellow apprentice is muttering curses at the other anvil. His chisel slipped. The master catches it instantly. Idiot, you'll blunt it. He shoves him aside, demonstrates with 2 perfect swings. The edge reforms like clay under his hammer. Like that. He doesn't wait for a reply before stalking off to check the quenching trough. Your fellow apprentice scowls at you. Laugh and I'll kill you. You raise both hands in mock surrender. Wouldn't dream of it. Quirky tidbit. Old apprentices who washed out sometimes came back to sabotage the shop. The master told you that once, late at night, voice grim. You see someone lurking, you tell me. You didn't ask questions. You didn't want to know. The day drags on. Bellows, hammer, bellows, hammer. You switch off, the rhythm so ingrained it's like breathing. Your arms don't even burn anymore. They've gone numb. You're not sure if that's good. You eat lunch leaning against the wall. Same stale bread, same salty cheese. You don't even taste it anymore. You sip ale that's warm and bitter. Your fellow apprentice slumps beside you. Think he'll ever let us make something nice? You snort. Define nice. He considers. Not a nail. You both laugh, the sound scraping out of your raw throats like rusty hinges. The master eyes you but says nothing. You think he's listening though, because later when you're shaping the hoe blade, he actually speaks. Gentle, he says, voice low. Edge it too thin, it chips. Farmer comes back tomorrow screaming. You adjust your swing. Clang, clang, better. He nods once, moves on. That single nod feels like winning a tournament. Historians still argue whether masters truly cared about their apprentices or just saw them as cheap labor. You're not sure. You think it's both. You think it's both. Because when you burn your hand on the tongs later, he doesn't laugh. He swears, shoves you aside, and plunges it in the quench trough himself. Idiot, he says, but quieter. He hands you the pig fat. Rub it in. Don't stop. Don't let it crack. You obey. Your fellow apprentice snickers. Baby. You flip him off. The master ignores you both. Because this is normal. This is family, in the worst possible way. When dusk falls, the forge glows like a demon's mouth. You're both shadows moving around it, hair plastered to your faces with sweat, clothes so blackened they might as well be part of the floor. The master surveys the day's work. Hinges, nails, shoes, the hoe blades. He doesn't praise you, but he doesn't toss anything in the scrap pile. You'll take it. You sit heavily on your stool, legs shaking. Your fellow apprentice collapses beside you, eyes closed, mouth hanging open. The master doesn't yell. He sits too, arms folded. Tomorrow, he says eventually, you want to scream, but you don't. Because you'll be here. You know it. You'll be back at the bellows, back at the hearth, back at the anvil, because you have nowhere else to go. Because you're the apprentice. Because someday, if your back doesn't break, if your hands don't fall off, if you don't die of lung rot first, you'll be the master. You'll be the one saying gentle in that gravelly voice. You'll be the one who knows when the iron's ready just by the sound. You'll be the one people bring their broken lives to so you can fix them. You'll be the one who doesn't say thank you. Because this isn't gratitude. It's work. It's survival. It's necessary. You're the blacksmith's apprentice. And you're not done yet. Not by a long shot. The forge is quiet now, except for the gentle crackle of dying coals. You're sprawled on your straw mattress, too exhausted to even peel off your soot-stiff shirt. The other apprentice is out cold already, snoring so softly you can't even make fun of him. Your burns sting despite the pig's shoulders, pulse with dull agony. Your hands are cracked maps of misery. But you're too tired to care. You stare at the roof beams overhead. Black streaks of soot mark every one. You've memorized them. The knots in the wood, the gaps that whistle wind in winter. It's ugly. It's home. You can hear the master's deep breathing from the corner where he sits hunched on his stool, half dozing with arms crossed. He never really sleeps. He waits. He's waiting now, for you to get up, for you to fail, for the fire to die. Because it can't. It never can. Your eyes flick to the hearth. The glow is weaker now. Barely embers. You'll have to stoke it before dawn, or he'll throw you both out to sleep in the pig pen. And you know you will. You always do. Because you can't let it go out. Mainstream historical fact. A forge was more than a shop. It was a lifeline for the entire community. If it burned down or went cold, everything stopped. No tools, no repairs, no horses shod. You try to imagine what the village would do without you. Without the master. No one says thank you. But they'd notice if you were gone. They'd curse your name for dying. Your fellow apprentice snorts in his sleep and rolls over. He mumbles something that might be your name. Or an insult. You're too tired to answer. Your eyelids droop. But you fight it, because you still have to check the fire. Because the master will wake you anyway if you don't. You push yourself up with a groan. Your back cracks like a frost-split log. You limp over to the hearth. The coals hiss when you prod them with the iron rod. Little sparks swirl up like dying fireflies. You shovel in a tiny bit of coal, enough to keep it breathing. Not so much that it'll roar and waste fuel. You've learned that balance. He taught you. Even if he did it by screaming at you, even if he did it by smacking you upside the head, you can still hear his voice in your skull even when he's silent. Gentle, focus, listen. You hear the fire. It pops and crackles. It's alive. You hate it, but you love it too. It's the only thing that makes sense anymore. Your fellow apprentice snores louder. You roll your eyes. Useless, you mutter, but you grin a little, because you know he'd say the same about you. You glance at the master. He's still there, watching, pretending to sleep. You don't say anything. You just nod once. He doesn't nod back, but he sees you. You know he does. Quirky tidbit. Some smiths believed the forge itself judged them. That the fire remembered every mistake, every apology, every promise. You feel that now. Like it's watching you, judging you. You poke it one last time to settle the coals, making sure they're banked properly for morning. You turn away. Your arms dangle at your sides, too sore to lift. Your shirt sticks to you with old sweat. Your face is streaked black. You crawl back to the straw. It crunches under you. You sigh, close your eyes, and you let sleep take you. Because tomorrow you'll do it again. Because tomorrow there will be more hinges, more nails, more blades to repair, more bellows to pump. Because the forge doesn't care if you're tired. Because the master doesn't care if you're broken. Because the village doesn't care if you're hurting. They just need you, and you need them to need you. Because if they don't, you're nothing. You're just another body in the mud. You're just another mouth with no food. You're just another ghost haunting the village. But here, you're something. You're necessary. You're the apprentice. And one day, if you survive, you'll be the master. And you'll teach some poor kid how to keep the fire alive, how to listen, how to bend iron without breaking it, how to survive this brutal life. You'll yell, you'll curse, you'll insult them, but you'll keep them alive. Because someone did it for you. You shift on the straw. The coals crackle softly. The wind moans through the gaps in the wall. The master's breath rumbles like distant thunder. Your fellow apprentice snores, choking on soot even in his dreams. And you let the heaviness drag you down, because you earned it, because you survived today, and tomorrow, you'll survive again. So now, the forge grows dim. The coals settle into a soft pulsing glow, and you can finally let your breath slow. Feel your shoulders ease, the weight of the hammer slip away. The smoke clears, leaving only the memory of warmth on your face and the distant hush of wind outside these cracked old walls. You're lying there on the straw, eyes heavy, soot and sweat, a second skin you no longer notice. The master's voice fades into silence. Even the bellows give up their sighs. All you can hear is your own slow breathing, the gentle tick of cooling metal, and the lullaby of the settling hearth. Let yourself sink into it. Let your fingers unclench, your jaw goes slack. Picture that glow fading to gentle embers, nothing left to do tonight. No orders waiting, no curses, no burns. Just the hush of the workshop asleep around you, tools hanging quiet, shadows stretching long and soft. And you, apprentice, no longer for these last moments, just someone resting, just someone who made it through. Feel the cool earth under you, the scratch of straw giving way to calm. Let your heart slow, each beat softer like a hammer striking iron cooled to dark. Tomorrow will come, but not yet. Not now. Now there's only this hush, only this breath, only this glow, and sleep. Sleep well. Dream of quiet. Dream of warmth without fire. Dream of light without heat. Dream of peace.